Already kicked the dog out, so you know.
Yep, I banned my family to upstairs. Okay, who else do we need? We are live streaming on YouTube. Let me just check.
Can everyone hear me okay?
We got
Yes.
you.
Oh, Kevin, let him in. Sorry, going through here. There's quite a few people on.
Can anyone hear me? This is Marcus.
We can hear
Yes,
you.
Marcus, we can hear you. We got Dan and Kevin and Jennifer. Great.
Mariah,
We've got Mariah.
Sam,
Okay. I think this is Steve Ewing. I'm gonna see. Let's see. I have Debbie from the county looking, also checking and letting her people in. So,
I'm looking for Councilmember Naring still.
okay. Is Sean Frederick with us tonight? Councilmember Sean Frederick? Do we know?
I haven't heard anything contrary, so I don't know.
The health district board meeting just ended, so I'm
Oh.
guessing he's in transit somehow.
Okay, thanks, Angie.
Yeah, you bet. Like virtual transit, not like real transit.
Which is usually a little quicker.
Usually, but
Usually. Yeah.
I have to cross the Zoom trestle.
John Dyer's in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you.
Given one.
Oh,
Yep.
let our city attorney in.
That's Sam, Stephanie, Megan, Jared. We're missing Nate and we're missing Sean. Do we have Dan? Dan's there. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, Dan's in.
hey Stephanie.
Debbie, do you have all your staff over?
I do. I believe so. I have
Okay, great.
Eileen Canola and York Stevens Wajda.
Okay, and I've got David Levitan, you there? Yep, okay.
Okay, there's Nate,
There's-
Nate in the room,
I see him.
and we're just waiting on Sean. We'll give Sean another minute. We know he's swapping meetings here.
For those listening, I do see somebody has their hand raised. There will be opportunity for citizen comment at the beginning of the meeting and also during the public hearing for the annexation.
Ellie,
So-
that's Arthur with Snohomish County Public Works. I
That's why
wasn't sure.
he's.
I
Okay,
wasn't sure if we're going to pull him over at this point or not.
no wonder he had his hand raised. Okay, thanks, David. Debbie, I'll leave that to you.
Okay.
Just giving another.
I just messaged Sean. He says he's trying to get logged in right now. So
Okay, Debbie, do you have Nate yet? No?
Yes, he's over.
Oh, he is? Okay. Sorry, with so many people, it splits two screens.
Maybe we should start excusing some people.
There's,
Yeah.
there's Sean.
Oh, I see Sean now. Yeah, let me bring him in.
Debbie, I don't know if Nate's here. It was me that you moved over.
Oh, is that you? Let's excuse Russell then. I don't see him yet. I'll keep an eye.
All right, Mayor, I think, Do we have Sean? Yep, we do. I think City of Lake Stevens is set and the sewer district is set.
In the county, I see all the county council members.
Yep.
Stephanie, you got everybody?
Well, we don't have Councilmember Naring, I don't think.
No, I saw him.
That was his aide. I was mistaken.
Okay, well, let's do this. Let's go ahead and start. We got a little bit of city business prior to, and that'll give him time to jump in. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It's Lake Stevens City Council regular meeting, and we are conducting this meeting via Zoom. It's Tuesday, March 9th, 2021, and it is 6:04 p.m. So with that, meeting is called to order, and I would ask all to stand and follow us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
the republic for which it stands,
one nation
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll have a roll call. City Clerk Chellan.
Councilmember Daughtry,
I'm here.
Councilmember Peter Shagan,
Present.
Councilmember Frederick,
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson,
Present.
Councilmember Jorstad,
Here.
Councilmember Ewing,
Present.
Councilmember Tagent.
Present.
Excellent. So with that, Council President, can I get an approval of the agenda?
Okay, City Council, is there anything that you want to change on the agenda for tonight?
I move that we accept the agenda as submitted.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Mayor, you have an agenda.
Excellent. I appreciate it, President. So with that, we're going to move into citizens' comments. Now, these are regular citizens' comments. These, we're asking that if you have comments for the public hearing of the Southeast Interlocal Annexation, that you hold those comments until the public hearing portion of, or the public comments portion of that public hearing. So if you have comments outside of the annexation issues, then this would be your time to do citizens' comments. And as we do citizens' comments, we look for a hand raised in the attendees group, and we'll bring you into the panel here, and you will have 3 minutes to address yourself. We ask that you give your name and address, and we will give you a timer for 3 minutes. When you hear the timer go off, that means you have 10 seconds left to wrap up. So with that, are there any citizens' comments outside of the Southeast Interlocal Annexation agenda item for tonight? I see Robin McGee with her hand up.
Let me bring her into the meeting. All right, Robin, are you with us?
Yes, sorry, something happened and I fell off and came right back on. So yeah, so my name is Robin McGee, Lake Stevens citizen. So I'd like to express my support for a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission tonight. So this has come up in several of the prior meetings. So some of the advantages of a DEI commission include citizens and elected officials will learn how to be more welcoming to marginalized people in the community. Education about diversity is proven to result in a safer community for everyone. People who are marginalized will feel more welcome. Greater turnout for community events with people who previously did not feel welcome or safe. And increased tolerance across the community by people who are different from each other will result in just a happier and a safer community. So try as I might, I cannot come up with a single downside, other than the subject can make some people feel uncomfortable at times. And I do understand the makeup of the current council is not super diverse. I do urge the council to please allow for the creation of a diversity commission for the community members who are not on the council. People in the community continue talking about wanting this to be created as part of the city. Our city continues to grow, and a growing citizenry will likely result in a more diverse citizenry. I do believe that they deserve a voice and a commission committed to making this a welcoming and safer home for them. Thank you so much.
All right, Ms. McGee, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to have citizen comments outside of the Southeast Interlocal Annexation tonight? I am not seeing any hands up. Are you, City Clerk?
Let me just toggle over there. No, I am not.
Okay, we don't have anybody waiting in a side room or anything?
No side rooms, no lobbies.
All right, perfect. So with that, we'll go ahead and close the citizens' comments and we'll move to council business. Council President.
Okay, I'll start. I have nothing really to talk about tonight, so I'll go on with Councilmember Peter Shagan.
Nothing tonight, Councilmember Daughtry. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tagent.
Yes, I attended Parks Board yesterday. Great Parks meeting. They're looking at putting their program together for this upcoming year. Kind of one of the challenges we tasked them with was putting together a list of projects and things that they would like to see. So this is something that's kind of made up between the council and the Parks Board. So I encourage you guys to look at any projects or ideas that you guys might have for parks or growing areas of need that you guys see us having. So that way we can kind of give our input to the Parks Board as well. We know they have a very strong committee. So I think they're really going to have their hand on most of what we want anyways. But if there's something out of the ordinary that you guys want, make sure you relay that so that way we can put it on their agenda and let them help prioritize that for us. But other than that, great Parks Board meeting. Nothing else to report. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Dickinson.
Yes, first of all, kudos to the Public Works folks or whoever put up the sign that has a speed limit right in front of the senior center. Yay. They were really glad to see that because people do fly down Soper Hill Road and it is not safe. So Senior Center much appreciates that. I also was at the Park Board meeting and what a stellar group of folks those are. That's all I have to say, and go Marcus.
Thank you, Councilmember Dickinson. Councilmember Ewing.
Comments tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Jorstad.
Thank you. I have nothing this evening.
And Councilmember Frederick.
I have nothing this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
All right, great. Good stuff. Real quick on my thoughts. Myself and a couple of council members, Councilmember Peter Shagan, Daughtry, and I think Tagent are going to, we found some graffiti on an old eyesore of a building, and we're going to go paint that over on Thursday. It'll be a good project for us, and I think it may actually turn into a new park for us down the road in the Cedar Wood area. So more to come on that. I want to give a thank you to the Public Works folks and to our stormwater folks for the level of the lake. It's nice and low compared to where it has been historically. And I think that's a testament to their work in the outflow channel. Also, kudos out to the police department. I don't know if you all saw, but alarms.org ranked us 7th safest city in the state. So I'll be getting with the chief because we need to get to number 1. So get some time to roll some sleeves and get there, right? All right. So with that, I don't have any city department reports. So we're going to move into item A on our agenda, which is a joint public hearing with Snohomish County Council and Lake Stevens Sewer District, reference the Southeast Interlocal Annexation. So with that, I'm going to open, first of all, I want to welcome the county council members as well as the sewer district commissioners to our Lake Stevens City Council meeting. It's great to have each and every one of you, and it's fun to get this many electeds in the same room and see faces, and hopefully next year, or if we do this again here in the near future, we can do so in person. With that, I'm going to open the joint public hearing, reference Lake Stevens City Ordinance number 1112, Sewer District Resolution 996, and Snohomish County Ordinance 21-005, which is a Southeast Interlocal Annexation. And with that, I'll call this public hearing to order. And we are here tonight to consider an interlocal agreement for the city to annex what is known as the Southeast Interlocal Annexation Area. State law requires both the city and county to hold both public hearings as they consider approval of the ILA, which we have opted to hold as a joint hearing. The Sewer District Board has also been invited to participate in the hearing as the district is part of the is a party to the ILA. We're going to start this evening with a presentation from city and county staff on the proposed annexation. That will be followed by a public comment portion of the hearing, where individuals will be able to provide testimony to the three elected bodies. Following the close of public comment, the elected bodies will deliberate on the proposed ILA. Each elected body will then consider an action to approve or for action on the ILA. And with that, can I get this? We already have a roll call from the city. So if County Council Chair Wright could do a roll call of the county council members.
Actually, I'm going to call on Debbie Echo, our council clerk, to please call the roll.
Snohomish County Council Chair Wright.
Here.
Vice Chair Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember Mead.
Here.
Councilmember Naring.
Here.
Councilmember Lowe.
Present.
Here I have 5 members present for the Snohomish County Council.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Mayor.
Excellent, thank you. And with that, if I could get Sewer District Board President Dan Lawrenson to have a roll call of your commissioner, please.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. President of the Board of Commissioners for 2021 for Lake Stevens Sewer District, Dan Lawrenson is my name. Present this evening, I will call Commissioner Kevin Koshi if he could signify by indicating he can hear me.
I can hear you. I'm here.
Loud and clear. And Commissioner Jennifer Stevenson is our other board commissioner. If you could signify by hearing me.
I can hear you, and I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So the Board of Commissioners are present for this meeting. We'll turn it back over to you, Mayor Gailey.
Great. Thank you very much, President. So with that, we will move on to our staff overview, and that will be a presentation by David Leviton of the city and senior planner, and I'm sorry, is Eileen Canola who's a senior planner with the county.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Gailey. David Levitan, senior planner. We are going to be doing a brief PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to do a little bit of an overview on the ILA, some of the procedural requirements, and then Eileen is going to touch on some of the components of the ILA, and then the county's fiscal analysis and other analysis of the ILA. So it should be pretty brief. We're happy to answer questions at the conclusion of the presentation or hold off on questions until after the public comment period. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Looks like I need Kelly to let me do that.
Yes, David, hold on just a second. There you go.
All right. All right, so thank you to everyone attending, members of the public as well. So we're here tonight to consider an interlocal agreement to annex the area identified as the Southeast Interlocal Annexation Area. Just a little bit about the annexation area, looking at this map. So if you look at all the areas in blue, that's portions that are currently incorporated into the city of Lake Stevens. The areas in orange are the areas within the city's urban growth area. So that's this northern portion of the proposed interlocal annexation area, the southern portion that extends down to 20th Street Southeast. There's an additional area of UGA south of 20th that is not included within the proposed boundaries. And the annexation also includes the entirety of Lake Stevens, which is about 1,000 acres. Just a little bit about the annexation method, because this is new, became effective last June, adopted via Senate Bill 5522 last year by the state legislature. It allows for annexation of unincorporated territories pursuant to an interlocal agreement, or ILA. And really the impetus behind this, there was a push from local jurisdictions to provide for an annexation method for areas that were largely already urban in nature, where cities and counties could develop an interlocal agreement to provide for what was identified as the most efficient and effective way to provide urban services and to develop a jointly approved interlocal agreement and not create illogical boundaries or islands of unincorporated territory. This method and this proposed ILA is going to build on a lot of coordination that's occurred between the city and the county over the last several years and several decades. There is a master interlocal agreement for annexations that was created in 2005. The city has a number of comprehensive plan policies that deal with annexation, as well as goals 2.8 and 2.9 of the comprehensive plan. Back in 2016, the City Council adopted Resolution 2016-21, which adopted the city's current annexation plan, identified specific areas, proposed pre-zoning, identified a preliminary schedule for areas that would be annexed of our UGA. And then in advance of this, back in 2019, as part of the 2019 comprehensive plan docket for the city of Lake Stevens, the city established pre-designations for both land use related to the comp plan and zoning for the entirety of its UGA. The city made some minor amendments to those pre-designations as part of the 2020 comprehensive plan docket. That was limited to just a couple parcels on 20th Street Southeast. And then back in 2018, the city had a consultant complete a fiscal analysis for the portions of its UGA within the southeast portion of its UGA, the majority of which is being proposed for annexation tonight, at least for approved. That would be covered by the interlocal agreement. So a little bit about the procedural requirements for this annexation method. The city is required to initiate the annexation and to notify affected fire, water, and sewer districts. As noted there on the slide, the City Council adopted a resolution last summer authorizing city staff to begin negotiations with county staff. And we also notified the Lake Stevens Sewer District, Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue, and Snohomish PUD as the water provider. Snohomish PUD opted not to join in the agreement initially, and they are not part of the agreement. Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue had originally opted in just because it was a new process and they wanted to maintain all of their potential rights. But as we started to work through the ILA process, they identified that it wouldn't have any impacts on their service area, so they opted out of the ILA. And then the Lake Stevens Sewer District opted in as a party to the ILA. And as we'll get into a little bit later in the presentation, they will be annexing these areas via a separate annexation process into their service area. So a couple things as far as what needs to be addressed in the ILA. One of the major requirements is for residential parcels that are zoned for residential development currently within the county for a period of at least 5 years post-annexation. Those parcels must maintain a zoning designation that continues to allow for residential development, and that they cannot have their minimum gross residential density reduced below the current allowances in the county. As noted, the city has adopted zoning and land use pre-designations through the 2019 comprehensive plan docket as amended in 2020. And section 4.1 of the proposed ILA amends the master interlocal agreement, section 3.3. I would note to the county council members that that is shown as amendment sheet 1. The reason that there is an amendment for the county ordinance is that the ordinance was originally introduced in early February at a planning committee meeting. Since that time, there were some minor revisions to the ILA. An additional section was added. So that is what is shown as track changes within Amendment 1. One of the other major requirements, as the mayor had noted in his introduction, is that the city council and the county council are required to hold a public hearing, which we've opted to hold as a joint public hearing this evening. And then the ILA must also identify the boundaries of the annexation, as well as the effective date of the annexation, which would be May 28th, 2021. Exhibits A and B of the ILA include a map and legal description of the area. As far as required public notice for this public hearing, as required by the statutes, the city and county and sewer district provided notice in the Everett Herald for 4 consecutive weeks starting on February 12th. We have all 3 agencies have posted notice of the availability of the ILA as well as the notice of the public hearing on their public websites. This evening, following the staff presentation, the public will be afforded an opportunity to provide public comment as required. As noted on the screen, while not required by the law, the city opted to mail postcard notices to all property owners within the proposed annexation area. The city was also required to hold an informational public meeting. Annexations within the city are required to hold a minimum of 1 public meeting. The city opted to hold 2 public meetings. The first was on September 21st, 2020. The second was on December 9th, 2020. Staff provided a presentation, but the majority of the meetings focused on answering questions from the public. There were a lot of topics that were addressed that we've continued to hear from the public about. I would say the 2 most common issues addressed were the city's utility excise taxes. Like most cities in Snohomish County and in the state, the city has excise taxes on utilities that help pay for things like parks, road improvements, sidewalks, things along those lines. The county does not have those taxes, so that was an issue that was raised by a number of property owners and residents. And then I think probably the number 2 item is the development potential in the city versus the county. The current zoning in the majority of the annexation is R7200, which is a minimum lot size of 7,200 square feet. The city has assigned zoning pre-designations of R6, which is the most similar zone in the city of Lake Stevens. That minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet. So there were a number of questions about that. And then the additional items identified there on the screen. There's been additional public outreach that's been completed. City Council was briefed on the proposed annexation at their January 29th council retreat. And obviously back in July when they approved the resolution to initiate the negotiations. The County Council was briefed at their February 2nd Planning Committee meeting. And as noted, Amendment 1 shows changes to the county ordinance since that time. And staff has heard from a number of residents and property owners that I would expect that we'll probably hear from this evening, and has spoken to people by phone, as well as responded to a number of emails. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eileen, who's going to talk a little bit more about the topics covered.
Thank you, David. Good evening, council members and board commissioners. For the record, Eileen Canola, Planning Development Services. And just to go back to the slide that David mentioned regarding staff responding to inquiries, I think that would be the city staff. I think county staff has had maybe 1 or 2 inquiries that we responded to, just to clarify. So as David mentioned, there is an existing master annexation interlocal agreement between the county and the city that was effective in 2005. And so that's the basis for this annexation. Of course, this is an interlocal agreement annexation method, so therefore an interlocal agreement is required. But we both county departments and city departments use the basis of the master annexation interlocal agreement, which covers a variety of topics. So that master agreement is still in effect, But on top of that, when we wanted to highlight or underscore certain situations that were relevant to this particular annexation area, we call those specific items out in the interlocal agreement that's attached to the ordinance. So this interlocal agreement, of course, meets the requirements of state law for this annexation method. And the areas that we highlighted, both the city and county, as well as the sewer district, for orderly transfer of county facilities and services to cities, to the city rather, is the transfer of Sunset Park. So it'll be, upon annexation, it'll become a city park. The rights of ways that were to be included, we just wanted to underscore this in the interlocal agreement that was drafted. Although the master annexation interlocal agreement does cover that the associated right-of-ways do have to be annexed, we just wanted to highlight that from a county perspective and ensure that that was covered. And then surface water management facilities and the maintenance agreements and service charges, and a list of those facilities are in an exhibit to the interlocal agreement. But we also wanted to highlight this because the lake is a large area, and the county has been performing services regarding maintenance of the lake. And also we wanted to underscore the stormwater facilities and highlight that the county has a phase 1 NPDES permit where the city would have is a phase 2 jurisdiction. So I just wanted to highlight those areas that were important to us and to ensure that those services and facilities get transferred clearly. We wanted to make sure that that was there was a clear path of that transfer of services to the city. And of course, as David mentioned, the Lake Stevens Sewer District wanted to be party of the interlocal agreement. So as part of the interlocal agreement, they have a map that shows their sewer expansion area for the future, that they would be using a different annexation method, not this one per se, but those that are that's required under state law under chapter 57.24 of the Revised Code of Washington. Next slide, please. So as an exhibit to the interlocal agreement, the sewer district has provided a map of their proposed expansion areas for which there's no timeline at this to date. And of course, they would be using a different annexation method. But this is just to demonstrate of their intent to expand their sewer service area. Next slide. The county departments, usually during when we have an annexation come through the boundary review board, our county departments have an opportunity to comment and provide input on how the proposed annexation would affect their department services in terms of fiscal impacts, as well as to facilities, transferring facilities or services. So we didn't have the opportunity to do that because this particular annexation method does not go through the boundary review board first, it will go afterwards. But we did want to reach out to our county departments and just touch base with them and ensure that we were aware of the fiscal impacts. So overall for the county departments, the ones that responded that said that they had no major concerns they identified for their services or fiscally. Our finance department said that there would be no impact to the general fund property tax. It is still collected. And there's no impact to conservation futures property tax. There's a reduced sales tax revenue that would be at least partially, if not totally offset by the reduced need for county services. And I think that was a lot of the theme that we heard from many of our departments, that like in particular for parks and swim, that even though they might feel a little bit of impact fiscally, that's offset by they're not providing any services or maintenance to their facilities. So parks said that their loss in revenue was offset by savings for construction and maintenance of recreation facilities, in particular with Sunset Park. And planning department said there would be a modest reduction in permit revenue that would be offset by a reduction in permit processing expenditures. The sheriff said they estimated only a small impact to call load and patrol needs. And solid waste said there would be no impacts. The waste generated in Lake Stevens is sent to a county facility for disposal. And surface water management estimated an annual reduction of about $160,000 in surface water management charges beginning in 2022, but they said they would also adjust to the impacts that would occur next year, and that their swim service charges would cease at the end, and in 2022, they would cease at the end of this year, actually. Next slide, please. Oh, David, is this your slide?
Yeah, so I can go ahead, and this is the last slide. I would just note before we move on to this, into the public comment and description of the proposed actions. As noted, the city did prepare a fiscal analysis of this area back in 2018. Staff did not provide a slide on that, but is prepared to answer any questions related to that. Russ might have a little bit more familiarity on that than I do, but I'm happy to answer as well as I can. And so with that noted, so following this presentation, the mayor will be opening the public comment period of the public hearing. And then following that public comment, the city council, the county council, and the board of commissioners will deliberate on the proposed ILA. If all three bodies are prepared to approve the ILA, the following actions are proposed, which is city council approval of city ordinance 1112, district board approval of district resolution 996, and county council approval of county ordinance 21-005 with amendment sheet 1. If at least one body is not prepared to take action, the hearing can be continued to a future date. And as Eileen noted, with this method of annexation, the annexation would then be submitted to the Boundary Review Board for final review prior to it becoming effective. The effective date of May 28th factors in that BRB review timeline and process. And so with that, as noted, staff is happy to, city staff or county staff are happy to answer any questions at this point, or we can defer that until after the public comment period of the hearing. Thank you.
Do I have any questions from the council members or commissioners for staff at this time?
I have a question, Mayor Gailey.
Go ahead, Megan.
Thank you. So can staff go over the other forms of annexation and explain why the city has chosen this form of annexation for this area?
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of touch on that at a high level. Eileen, dealing with annexations more than me, is welcome to jump in. But probably the most common method in the state of Washington is the petition method. So typically that starts with 10% of property owners within a proposed area petitioning for annexation. That's then elevated to, that goes before the city council. And then that requires as a next step that 60% of that area, as far as property owners and or registered voters, depending on which method you go through. There's a couple different direct petition methods. That's probably the most common route. There is also, haven't gone through this as much, so I'd welcome Eileen to kind of jump in on the one related. There are methods that allow for property owners, or people to vote. So that is another method. And then there was an existing interlocal, prior to the adoption of Senate Bill 5522, there was an interlocal agreement method. It was called an island interlocal agreement, basically for areas that were surrounded by, that had at least 60% of their boundaries surrounded by currently incorporated cities, could use that island, that interlocal island method. I would say that as far as the reason that the city is pursuing this, as noted in the presentation, cities have been pushing for this kind of interlocal method, kind of a method to provide for opportunities in areas such as this, where it would be more efficient and effective to have a more streamlined form of government. That was really the main push. As noted, we had approached our city council back in July and asked them to adopt a resolution allowing us to begin that interlocal annexation method and to begin negotiations with the county. I'd welcome any additional feedback from individual council members as well, if they'd like to provide that.
Do we have any other questions for staff from any of the council members or commissioners?
I just want to confirm, excuse me, York, Stephen Swat, just Snohomish County Council staff. Councilmember Dunn, did that get to your question?
It did. Thank you, York.
Great.
Sorry, Councilmember Dunn, for not following up on that. Oh, yeah, forgive me.
No worries.
All right. Do we have any other questions for staff? Councilmember Dickinson.
Yes. Was there a reason the PUD is not, is that going to impact the people that live in this ILA? The fact the PUD is not, I couldn't quite get that figure out that piece, how that impacts us for them.
Yeah, so it won't have any impact on the PUD. That provision of the Senate bill and of this section of the RCW that deals with its annexation method is primarily focused on when full service cities are annexing areas, and so they would be taking over water service and taking that from PUD potentially. And so because the city is not a full service city, nothing will change as far as water service provision.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions for staff? Okay, hearing no questions from for staff, we're going to move on to the public comment or public comments portion of the hearing. And so during this public comments portion, we will listen to citizens who would like to speak solely upon the Southeast interlocal annexation subject. And each citizen will have 3 minutes to speak. We will look for hands raised in the attendees group, and you'll be called upon, brought into the panel, and you'll have 3 minutes. I'll start a timer for you. When you hear the timer go off, that means you have 10 seconds to finish up your thoughts for the council. And just so you know, the council members or the commissioners will not respond to questions. We're solely listening to your comments. So with that, are there any comments, citizens with comments?
Mayor, if I could, just as while people are thinking about it and getting to their raised hands, we did get 5 emails after the production of the packet, and I want to make sure we note those for the record. They have been sent to each and every one of you. Bruce and Janice Thompson, Charles and Uma Nielsen, James and Angela Monroe, Michael and Lisa Jones, and Janice Huxford, and those will be part of the record.
Excellent. Thanks for that reminder. So now, if you would like to comment at this time, please raise your hand and we'll bring you into the panel. I have a raised hand by Sally Jo Sebring.
Let me bring her in.
Ms. Sebring, can you hear us?
There, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great.
We're good. Go ahead and begin.
Great, thank you. Sally Jo Sebring, 1023 99th Avenue Southeast, Lake Stevens. Just for county council members, I live outside of the annexation area. I was annexed in the 2009 annexation. So I'm not affected in terms of being one of the folks that will be annexed this time. But I think my one main concern is the information, and heard council mention this before, that when some of these council members were new, that the city council members, that they were concerned about the information that got presented to potential residents. And sometimes it wasn't really accurate of what the reality was when the annexation happened. And so when I was looking over the annexation material, I looked at the question and answer, the most current question and answer about this annexation. And I know from reading a few notes earlier on from meetings that the police information just didn't seem accurate to me. And I noticed they've revised it still, but the current information in the question and answers talks about 24 patrol personnel in the city of Lake Stevens, and then talks specifically about the East Precinct, which would include 4 detectives. And so from what I've seen, looking at the 2020 chart for the city police department and for the 2021 police department budget proposal, I don't see 24 patrol officers. So I just want to make sure that correct, accurate information so that people have the right expectations. And then also the 4 detectives, makes it sound like the East Precinct, which the annexation area, I guess, is considered that, would have 4 detectives and a dedicated traffic officer. As far as I can tell, the city only has 4 detectives. So I just think we need to be honest and upfront about actually what kind of police coverage there will be. Is there any additional officers because of this annexation, or because I think people are naive if they don't live in the city. They may not realize that, they're not going to have, it's just going to be it's not going to, so I want to make sure those numbers are accurate and the representation of the police presence is accurate. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Sebring. Do you have any other citizens' comments on the public hearing portion? Please raise your hand if you do. I'm seeing a raised hand. Tom Matlock.
Bring Tom over.
Mr. Matlock, can you hear us?
I think he's just in now. Go ahead.
Mr. Matlock, can you hear us?
There we go. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Matlock. Go ahead.
Okay. Could we please make sure that the city clerk has a list of attendees on the Zoom meeting for a public records request after the meeting, please? Number 2, I disagree with no questions. How is the sewer going to do a separate annexation? There's 3 commissioners sitting right there.
Right. Mr. Matlock, we're not going to answer questions in this portion of the hearing.
Number 3, could all the city councilmen and the public make sure they read that annexation report that was referenced but not put into the slideshow, because it shows that annexations are a severe net loss of general fund capabilities for the city, especially in the street fund and the police, just like Sally Joe just kind of said. So I'll come into the sewer district one of these days and ask how that annexation goes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Matlock. With that, do we have any other hands up and any other folks wishing to provide citizens' comments tonight? I got Kate McKenzie. Ms. McKenzie.
Let me just get her over.
Ms. McKenzie, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead and begin.
I just want to say that I am in favor of this annexation. When I moved to Lake Stevens, I was pretty upset to learn that I didn't get to vote in elections, didn't get to have a say in what happens to our library and to our parks and any other things like that. And so I support this annexation so I can have a voice of what's happening in my community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McKenzie. And with that, we have, I see Michael Jones with his hands up. Hand up. A hand up. Mr. Jones, can you hear us?
Let me ask him to unmute. Oh, there
Can you
we
hear
go.
me okay?
We got you, Mr. Jones. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've provided written comments, so I'll keep my comments brief here. But to me, I think this is a bad deal for everyone in the Southeast interlocal area. We're getting increased taxes. None of the city council members are from the area. To me, they don't represent us. At the Zoom meeting in December, it was commented there's no road improvements planned for the area. There's no public facilities planned for the area. There's no recreation areas planned for the city. As David said, the zoning is already going from 7,200 to 6,000. And I know the city is a real fan of 3,600 square foot lots. You know, look at the entire Rodera area. The city regulations say that when developers put in new streets, they only need one parking spot for every 5 houses, which to me is insane. There's an exception. They only need to put on street. They can do off street in terms of a parking lot. And we're just going to be inundated with developments that are substandard, that cookie cutter houses together. The last development, the developer that did Rodera, the traffic study said that the intersection at Davies Road and South Lake Stevens Road is going to go from, I believe, a B to a D, just barely acceptable just from that one development. And when this area gets annexed and all the new developments with all the new houses and increased density that gets put in, you know, where are those cars going to go on South Lake Stevens Road? You just improved it, you just added a nice parking or a nice walking path, but where are additional cars going to go? Everyone needs to get garbage, whether they want it or not. If you have farm animals, well, not anymore. So it seems like it's a land grab of the city, tax grab for the city, and we get absolutely nothing from it. So I'm totally opposed of it. A lot of my neighbors I've talked to are opposed to it, and I hope folks on the city council and folks on Snohomish County maybe take a time out, back up, have some face-to-face meeting when this COVID is over, and let people talk face-to-face in terms of, you know, how does this benefit us versus just benefit the city? And thanks for letting me have my comments.
Appreciate it, Mr. Jones. I see Garrett Welch with his hand up. Mr. Welch, can you hear us?
Yep.
Go
Am I
ahead.
unmuted now?
You are unmuted. Go ahead.
Excellent. I'm against this interlocal agreement simply because it does not give the residents that you are deciding on a vote in this process. I don't understand why the legislator needed to have a fourth process in annexations when there are perfectly good 3 processes involved, the best of which are voting by each person to go into the city of Lake Stevens. The Rodera Heights annexation was a complete mess. The mayor voting, and not you, Brett, but the previous mayor voting for 67 times for the previous residents because they had an agreement with their development. And I don't think that's right. We need to spend more time allowing the people to have a voice of what's going to happen to them. So thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Wells, thank you very much for your comments. Do we have anybody else wishing to provide comment tonight? Please raise your hand.
Mayor, we do have one person on the phone. I'm not familiar with what they need to do to raise their hand. If you want to unmute them to ask if they have any comments.
I am okay with that. Let's first take comments from Janice.
Sure.
Janice, can you hear us?
Ask her to unmute.
Janice, are you there? You're gonna need to unmute.
Unmuted. Thank you so much.
All right, Ms. Huxford.
You would think after living on Zoom for a year that this would be anything that is anything but unnatural. But tonight I simply ask that the council and both councils, city and county, look at this from a point of view of transparency and simply looking at the timing of this proposal. It's against what I think everybody that is sitting on this call got elected to do, which is simply to represent their constituents. And right now, your constituents don't even know this is going on. For the most part, the calls that I have sat on in this area, certainly I can't go out and talk to my neighbors. I don't want to inflict any more hardship on them while they are going through the holidays and trying to educate their children and trying to keep their businesses afloat. And to put this overlay when it's not time sensitive seems unjust, if I may be so bold. I only learned of some of the names of some of my neighbors when I read through your packet. And I looked at some of the comments from Miss Bard and Mrs. Hollingsworth, and some of the people that I long to meet. I look forward to meeting my neighbors up here, but I can't do it right now. And I can't speak for them or with them about what's coming our way because of the timing of this, which came so quickly on the cusp of that legislative move that was made down in Olympia. So I would ask simply, and my letter states this, without this being something that needs to be done today, can we simply slow the roll, folks? Can we make this something that can be discussed as a community? So as Mr. Matlack's letter to you in your packet states, that you can have happy people come into your city, that you can have happy people still be a part of your county. I simply want this to be good for all, and I don't think this is the right way to go about doing it. So please, respectfully, if you would look at the letters that have been received in their entirety, and let's make this right for everybody. I appreciate your time and your service on behalf of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Huxford. With that, are there any other hands raised in the attendees? I see Stu. Let's go ahead and bring Stu in. Stu, if you want to unmute yourself, then go ahead. You're muted if you're talking. Stu, you're going to need to unmute.
I'm sending him a message to unmute.
Okay. I'm unable to unmute him, so. Stu, are you able to unmute yourself?
Is this a call-in user?
No.
Okay. I think on a phone it's like *9.
Okay.
Mayor Gailey, I know that if this is Stuart Snyder, he had emailed me right before asking for the phone-in number, so you might just check to see if that phone number is him, and somehow he had joined the Zoom but opted for the call-in option.
Stu, are you unmuted now? We cannot hear you, Stu. Okay, let's move Stu back into the attendees panel. And Stu, if you'd work on your AV so we can get your comments, that'd be great. And then are there any other hands up in the attendees? I'm looking for any.
Mayor.
What's that?
I am not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, do we want to bring 7708 in and see if they have any comments?
Sure. So phone number ending in 7708. I just brought you into the meeting. If you want to unmute yourself, if you do have comments, or let us know if you have comments.
And on your phone, it's *9. Okay, I'm not hearing any comments. 7708.
It's still muted.
Right.
Let me see if I can. Yeah, the only thing I can do is ask him to unmute. It's on him if he is muted.
Right. Okay.
No comment.
He's on mute.
No comment.
Oh,
No,
thank you very much.
Thank you, 7708. All right, so with that, are there any other hands up? I'm not seeing any other hands up at this time. For further comments? Let's give Stu one more chance here. Let's bring Stu in and see if he was able to unmute there. Stu, are you able to unmute and give us your comments? You're off mute, so if you can go ahead and speak. Yeah, we're not getting you if you're talking. I'm sorry, Stu. If you want to, please shoot an email to the city clerk with written comments so that we can get those into the record, please. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comments portion of the hearing. Do we have any other further comments by staff?
I do not have specific comments on any individual items. The sewer district annexation process, I guess, as we noted, it's identified in a different section of the RCW, the Revised Code of Washington. So either city staff or sewer district staff is happy to get into a little bit more detail on how that works. I would welcome maybe if Chief Dyer is still on the line, clarification, and if there was confusion as far as the information that was provided in the question and answer, I would welcome him to provide a clearer assessment of police services, both currently and then the numbers that were included factor in what the police levels would be upon annexation of these areas.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure the East Precinct refers to the county, I believe, and not the city. We do not have precincts. So right now, our patrol staff comprises 20 officers. We are in the process now of adding 2 more, in part in anticipation of the annexation. So that would bring us to 22. And then what our plan is then to kind of observe and see where we're at that point and see how things go, and then make some decisions from there. The caller was correct. We have 4 detectives. That is not an East Precinct thing. That is for the city. I should say it's 5 detectives. We have a supervisor and then 4 detectives as well. So I'm not sure if that's the kind of clarification you were looking for. If anyone else has any questions, reference that. I'd be more than happy to answer.
Excuse me, I got a question for you, Chief Dyer. Does that, do you feel that's sufficient to handle this annexation?
I'm very comfortable with adding the 2 and then doing an assessment. Let's get into the annexation and then do the assessment from there. So I'm real comfortable with that.
Hey, Chief, how will the call times be affected by the annexation, and what comparison was done relative to call times for or what the county currently offers?
It's tough. It's difficult to get out the specific addresses, because of course the East County is a large area. So we did try to pull out some information, and the call load may go up roughly 10%. And as far as doing the comparison between the response times, we just don't have, to be honest with you, the capability to be able to go into that depth. I mean, if you look at where the police department is and where our officers are going to be compared to where the deputies may potentially be, which is a huge area, intuitively, the response times will be much quicker. But I just don't have the capability to get into that level of analysis.
Okay, do we have any more staff comments?
Yeah, Mayor Gailey, just before we move on to the deliberations, just a couple of items. We've heard from a number of members of the public related to the Redora annexation. I would just like to note that that was through a petition method where they petitioned for that specific zoning district, which is what is now the R8 through 12 zoning district, which has a lower minimum lot size, much lower, and can go down through deviations down to that 3,600 square feet. That's not what's proposed as part of this. It was assigned to that R6, which is the most similar to the R7200. And as far as potential improvements, our Public Works Department has already done an inventory within the area. And so they've identified a number of areas as far as road resurfacing, sidewalk repairs, street lights that are needed in areas. And so there are a number of improvements that our Public Works Operations Manager has already done an inventory on. So there are some things where we think there will be some value added related to that. As far as the farm animals, there was a comment related to that. And we've had discussions with a number of related to those types of items. And basically for things that are permitted through the county, essentially those residents would be vested to the county code if they can kind of demonstrate that it was permitted. So we've had questions about private kennels, which over a certain number of animals which are not permitted in the city but are permitted in the county. So that would be a vested land use that they would be able to continue within the city. And then as far as farm animals, and we're happy to work on, potential tweaks to our code to better clarify that. So I just wanted to note that one as well, because that's a concern that we've heard in the past.
So when you say tweaks to the code, would that entail some kind of grandfather again of people that may have that, or what do you anticipate that looking like?
Well, I think if we thought that there needed to be clarification on that, vesting, kind of land use vesting rights are kind of inherent to the state of Washington. But if there needs to be some clarification in the code, that's something that we can discuss if the council feels that there needs, at the local level needs to really clarify that. But the kind of concept of being vested as far as land use rights is something that's established in Washington state.
Council, I'd like to provide some clarification on the report from FCS. For the record, Russ Wright, Community Development Director for Lake Stevens. So a couple of comments were made tonight on the FCS report that the council had commissioned a couple of years ago. One of the things that report looked at were three development scenarios within the annexation area, and in particular, breaking it up into different quadrants. Council had looked at that in depth at its retreat a couple of times and opted to go with the option that looked at the areas 1 and 2. As far as the fiscal impact in all annexation solutions or strategies, there is a deficit in the street fund, and that's just inherent in street operations, whether those areas are annexed or within the city itself. They have a mileage value added to those that's a very conservative number. If you take away the street funding portion of it, the general fund portion of it, if under the annexation proposal that the council moved forward with for areas 1 and 2, there's actually an increase in revenues over the next 25 years and not a deficit in the general fund. So it's just isolated to the street fund where this deficit does occur. And that led to part of the council's decision to move forward looking at annexation of these areas. And happy to answer any questions from the councils tonight.
This is Angie. I have a quick question. There was a comment tonight and another in writing with concerns about whether or not the community is aware that this is happening. Can you review the process that you went through to notify residents within the annexation area, the opportunities they've had to provide input?
Yeah, so I'm happy to get into that. So as noted, we did, before getting to the public hearing stage, we held 2 informational public meetings. In advance of both of those public meetings, we mailed out well, the first one, we actually mailed out a letter to all property owners within the annexation area. And then the second one, we provided a postcard notice. So that went to the approximately, I think it was about 1,100 property owners within the area. So they were notified of those 2 public meetings. We provided postcard notice in advance of this public hearing as well. That's not something that's required by the code, but something that we thought was best practice, especially, at this time and date. We have maintained a website that has information about the proposed annexation, where we posted a copy of the ILA. We've welcomed public comment, and city staff, just to clarify, I've had a number of phone conversations and a number of email threads with residents within the area, so have been able to reach out to them on that. So those are the major ways, and then advertising this meeting and the previous public meetings on the city's Facebook page, on the city's website. So all of the things that we would have done, pre-COVID. And so really the major change between the methodology has been that this meeting and the 2 public meetings are being held virtually via Zoom as opposed to in person.
Great. Thank you, David. Appreciate that.
Do you have any other staff comments or questions for staff?
Councilmember Dickinson.
Yes, thank you. So first of all, yay, you guys work so hard, and I know you've been dealing with emails and phone calls and all this. What would you say the population is of these areas if we put them together? Do you have any idea what the population is we'd be bringing into our city? And how many people do you think have reached out to us either by phone or in emails?
So the population, the estimated population is about 3,000 people. That's our best estimate. We're required by law upon the effective date of the annexation to do a census of the annexation area. So we should get a more accurate number. But if you look at the FCS report for areas 1 and 2, the estimate was about 3,500 residents. Portions of both areas 1 and 2 have since been annexed. There's been some additions within the Rodora area, which are now part of the city, but kind of the best estimate is right around 3,000 people. I would say public comments, probably between 25 and 30, and then we have maybe an additional 15 or 20 people beyond that, maybe 25 people between the 2 public meetings in September and December. And so I would ask Russ, if he had, this is obviously a much larger area than any of our past annexations, and I wasn't involved with any of the larger ones. We basically had a lull between 2009 and 2018 as far as annexations, but I'm not quite sure how much public feedback there would have been back in 2009, but that's the amount that we received at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other staff comments or questions? Councilmember Peter Saban.
Thank you, Mayor Gailey. David, you kind of, in some of your comments, you made a comment that Public Works staff has kind of done an inventory of deficits or needs, number of items you listed out. Do you suspect that those things will start happening in the not too distant future? I don't expect us to go out there and fix everything, in the next year or anything, but the purpose of that inventory is to start getting things on the list and conducting those improvements. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we have Public Works Director Durpo on as well, if he's much more familiar with the inventory that Tyler had done. And so I would welcome Eric to elaborate on that if he can.
Hey, good evening, Mayor, Council Member Peter Shagan. Yeah, you're exactly right, Council Member, that we put this list together. There are general maintenance items, vegetation control, site distance issues, roadside mowing, typical annual things we do, roadside striping. We've identified a few culverts that need cleaning and basic work. But some of the larger things we're putting into our capital plan, like overlays of the roadways, some sidewalk repairs that we'd be getting to in future years. We've also sat down with the county and looked at their list, which they had no major improvements planned either.
So as a follow-up to that, once these items are established in a capital facilities plan, mitigation fees and funding will start addressing some of these things, correct?
Yes, yeah.
And I guess for the record,
sorry.
I'm sorry, but I was just going to, and I think you alluded to it, that I just wanted to point out and kind of highlight on page 6 of the interlocal, it does talk about the county has not identified any planned capital improvements to roads or other existing transportation infrastructure or to surface water facilities. And, one of the tenets or one of the priorities that the city has is the water quality of the lake. And this county does collect surface water fees and has helped us in the past in regards to water quality with the lake and so forth. But I think from a localized standpoint, I think the city will be a little more concerned, maybe is the way to put it, with the water quality of the lake and probably a little more in tune locally as to what's going on with that. So again, I just kind of like to highlight to the rest of the council. So thank you.
And if I could follow up on one other capital item, as the Sunset Park would be transferred to the city, should this annexation be approved, the city's already incorporated that as a potential project in its capital facilities plan. Significant maintenance and repairs are needed to that. So that is already an identified capital project that the city would like to take on. And then I believe Councilmember Wright has had her hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to actually Councilmember Dunn's question about the different methods of annexation. I can definitely understand why you did not use the petition method during a pandemic, but why not use the advisory vote method just to get that input from this area to get a better understanding of how the people feel?
I can take that on, Council President Wright. So that was an area of my own personal contention that we didn't take this to a vote. And what I had to do is I had to fall back onto my mayor's hat and realize that this area that is on the east side of the lake uses quite a bit of the resources of the city, whether that's city roads to get in and out of this area, whether that's parks already within the city. The reality of it is, if there's a violent emergency within that area, our police will be there first. No dig against the sheriff deputies, but they've got a great big area to cover. So from a mayor's standpoint, the reason why we would go this route is to protect the interests of our current constituents in bringing in the rest of the lake.
Weren't you worried, or at least my concern is not getting that feedback from this area that would now be part of the city and not knowing how they felt, just because we are in the middle of a pandemic and it's hard to do that outreach. And it just seems like an advisory vote, and the counties use these for things like fireworks and other things to kind of get the feeling, so we don't have to guess how they feel, but we can know how they feel. So for me, that's where I'd feel more comfortable.
I get your comfort level on that, and it was a well or often thought upon process. I'll give you that.
Okay, yeah, for me, well, I heard earlier that this method was more efficient. I do fear that it lacks the public process under normal circumstances, but definitely during a pandemic. So that is my reticence. Well, that and the fiscal analysis being after the fact, but that's a secondary issue. So thank you. I really appreciate your answers and input.
Do you have any other staff? We're still in staff comments, questions for staff. Do we have anything?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Let me just add a little bit more on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. On the issue of the process, one of the reasons that the interlocal agreement process was adopted by the legislature was further the process of growth management. Both the city and the county have been in their planning and looking at the direction of the city and its annexations, have considered and looked at the annexation of these areas to the city. They're part of the city's urban growth area for which services are intended to be served by the city. And in the process of implementing the Growth Management Act, doing the planning, these prior interlocal agreements, there has been public participation in the growth management process. So the push is that to try to get the goals and purposes of growth management better and more efficiently accomplished. If these areas have already been considered in some situations for a number of years by the affected cities, counties, and other special purpose districts that might be located therein, there already has been a lot of planning and a lot of public participation. So this was a means to have a more efficient process for those areas where that sort of process has occurred and has been occurring for a number of years.
I would hate to put efficiencies before that public outreach.
I'm not going to comment. I'm just saying that part of the reason for that legislation, and just responding to that question.
I believe we have Council Member Dunn, then Commissioner Lawrenson after that.
I just wanted to piggyback on that idea. I agree with the concern raised around the process, and certainly the Growth Management Act and the goals of the GMA are critical, but that's ignoring the ability for people on the lake to have input. So it's not just annexing a small area. This is also including a large lake, which impacts all of the people who live on the lake, who also own potentially shoreline, or you could consider they own part of the lake. So I think that it would be important to have input from all the impacted people, lakefront properties especially, because it's an annexation that includes the entire lake. So I agree it's more efficient, but there's been a number of piecemeal annexations, and it seems like you're taking them all individually one by one, but if you look at it in whole, it would be good to have an advisory vote or some kind of input, because there is no direct input from all of the people impacted. So not just the ones in the kind of corner area, but also all the lakefront properties. So I also understand, since we're in the question period, but that the lake management would be changing. So there's a 2013 ILA that provided for lake management and quality cost sharing, repayment of stormwater improvement debt, miscellaneous stormwater services. So I wondered if staff could go over some of the lake management and how that would be impacted.
Director Durpo, can you field that question?
I certainly can. That's correct. We're currently in ILA with the county. When it comes to Eurasian milfoil control and the alum treatments that we do annually, currently the agreement spells out that the city pays 90% of all the cost of the lake maintenance currently, and the county pays approximately 10%. And that was based on feet of shoreline in that calculation that's in the city versus what's out of the city with the county residents along the lake. That agreement does expire at the end of this year. And currently we do contract out some of our lake maintenance with the county stormwater division. Through just a different aisle or things like that. The county has given us an estimate of what that would cost if we contracted with them, just to help get our people trained to make sure it was a smooth transition here in 2022. The city's also looking at potentially just training our people up and buying some of that test equipment. But we're kind of analyzing that still currently. So the option is still there. The county's been gracious and offered their services if we choose to continue with using their expertise. But yes, that agreement does expire. The county pays 10% currently for milfoil and alum treatments. There is a fund that the city and the county jointly shared. It was established when the old aerator was in the lake. It's an aerator maintenance repair operation fund. The county and the city has agreed to spend that account down to zero, so there's not a balance in that account at the end of 2021 when the ILA expires. So that's currently where we're at with the lake maintenance with the county. And we are that over ourselves for potentially contract with the county to continue having them help us with the service.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Lawrenson.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the comments. Hearing a lot of them, I appreciate from council members Wright and Dunn from Snohomish County talking about concerns. I think that a lot of people in this area have concerns. I think, Mr. Rubistelli, your comments on the growth management were correct in the context that it is an efficient way, but I think it's tone deaf to the people that live within the area that are going to be part of this annexation. I've lived in the community for 50 plus years. I was a city employee at one time. I've been an elected official either by the Lake Stevens Fire District back in 2004 until 2014. And then I had been a sewer commissioner off and on, and now I'm back as a commissioner in my current position. I think a lot of the times we get a lot of people, because I know that the city council members and the county council members have probably all received emails and concerns and phone calls and text messages in regards to this. And it is one of those things that it's a hot button topic. Annexations in the Lake Stevens area, if you've been part of Lake Stevens, have always been a hot button topic. People are really concerned on the way things are going and how they've done it. I've attended both of the meetings. I think the staff did a great job in putting on those Zoom meetings. It was great to do it, but it does not give face-to-face time to the citizens when they truly want to reach out to us. And I mean, the district, we have a unification agreement that we are going to follow. We have concerns that we always do as electeds when our constituents talk to us, but we're going to follow what we have, and we'll have more discussion on that. But I think it was just, I think Mr. Rubistello, when you brought it up, and I know you were just advising on legal, because that's what you are, is the legal for the city. You're not as sensitive as you probably should have been towards the citizens that have a voice in the area. And it does affect them. It has an impact whether we want to say something or not. To the mayor, I appreciate that, you know, you made the decision. That is part of your job at times, to make a decision. But the lake, while it might be in the incorporated city of Lake Stevens eventually, it is still part of Snohomish County, where every resident in Snohomish County and beyond has the ability to come and utilize it. It's not a private lake. Well, we have a lot of homes around it, the public beaches and everything, they're open. So we have to be cognizant of all of those things to the citizens, because we have 800,000+ people that live in this county. And while 33,000 will be in the city, there are a lot of people that do flock to the recreational areas within all of the cities within Snohomish County. So I just wanted to mention that it gets to me at times, and you can probably tell by my voice in that aspect, that annexations are a hot button topic. And I think that we have to respect what the people want when they ask these questions. An advisory vote, I know the county does it. I think it's an awesome idea, just for the fact that it'll really give some sense of a direction, especially in a pandemic where we're in this situation where we can't have these meetings and may not have meetings until later this year. So I appreciate everybody's hard work on that, but that's what I just wanted to be able to speak on. So thank you for the time.
Okay, so just to reiterate, we are in question mode for staff. We can go into deliberation afterwards. Do we have any other questions for staff or staff comments?
Thanks, Mayor Gay. I would just note that, you know, that as we discussed, that there are approximately 3,000 residents in this area. And so we definitely have heard from a small minority of those. I think it's important to consider the size of the annexation area. And I'm not going to read into or infer the silence from, you know, the vast majority of that. I just think it's important to note that. I would note, as far as the use of the lake, that as far as kind of patrol of the lake, that's something that the city of Lake Stevens currently does, even with it being in the county, that we do have a marine patrol that provides that service. The majority of the lake is currently, as far as the lakefront, is within the incorporated city of Lake Stevens. It's subject to the city of Lake Stevens Shoreline Master Program. The parks on the west side of the lake and on the north side of the lake are run by the city as opposed to the county. The city, with Sunset Park being the only county park on the lake. And so that would continue, the city would continue to provide that. So it would essentially be bringing the lake into the incorporated city. But as Director Durpo had noted, the city, you know, currently funds the majority of the management as it relates to water quality, as it relates to the water level. City will be doing improvements to the weir to better maintain the levels of the lake. And so the city has already taken kind of the primary role and doesn't really see that will be changing or that will have an impact on future use of the lake. And so, yeah, I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Councilmember Jurstad.
Thank you. I'm not sure who best to direct this question to, whether it's David or Russ or somewhere different, but if we were to shift gears and move towards an advisory vote process, what would that look like at this point, and what's the timing?
I'm not sure what the exact implications would look like. So I think that's something we'd have to get back to you on timing of the elections and the process, but I wouldn't be prepared to give an answer this evening.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just was kind of trying to think in my head what, you know, how that might look. So I appreciate you looking into that and getting information to me when you can. Thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Council President Wright.
Thank you. Actually, it's kind of piggybacking on Angie's question. I had a similar question. If we chose to pause this process, and this is a staff question, could there be an advisory vote voluntarily outside of an annexation process, get the input from this area, and then come back to this process using this same method after that advisory vote occurred?
I have a question of clarification for Councilmember Wright. Are you talking about an advisory vote through the state election process?
Through the county election process.
County election,
doing
yeah, that's what I meant,
yeah.
county election. So like a November election or?
I would assume a primary in August. I think that's the next one you could get on. You'd have to file that in May, and then it could be on the August primary ballot.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Greg, did you have a comment on that?
From a legal standpoint, you certainly could do that. I mean, if the bodies are not ready to, as Mr. Leviathan said in his comments, if the elected bodies are not ready to approve the ILA, it can be put on hold, and you can have further discussion, further community meetings. You could do an advisory election. All those things are possible. It's just, yeah.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question for Greg. How much is the cost of that election? Is that like $60,000 to do that?
I don't remember the exact cost. It's gonna. I don't think it's 60, but it's up there. It's in the 30,000, 40,000 area, as I recall.
You'd be piggybacking on an existing election that would already be taking place in that exact area in August.
If we can piggyback, then
There's a required primary because there are partisan positions on this year.
All right. Well, then if we can do that, that kind of helps with the financial issue.
That would be in August. Is that correct?
Councilmember Dickinson.
Yes, I think it'd be in August. 60%, is that your understanding of what would have to be positive on this annexation in an August primary? Were we to have such a thing?
No, if it's simply an advisory ballot, that's all it serves the purpose as. In other words, it's not an election under one of the other annexation methods that may require a certain percentage of voters. If all you're doing is wanting to hear from the citizens of that area, the people that reside there, it's just you're going to take their vote under advisement, whichever way the election outcome would come out.
But there's
Member
no,
Dickinson. Yeah, sorry.
there's no specific percentage that you have to.
No.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, that 60% was the threshold for one of the petition methods. There's kind of what's called the old method and the new method. And so that's where that 60% of either property ownership or property ownership plus registered voters comes in. So that's not related to the voting method.
I think I've got a hand up from Council President Wright. Do you still have another question? Your hand's still up.
I apologize. I did not put it down, so my bad. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other questions for staff or staff comments before we move into deliberation? I'm hearing none of that. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move out of that and go into discussion and deliberation between the council members and the commissioners.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilmember Lowe.
I have a disclosure to read. It's 3 sentences. May I be allowed to read it?
You may be allowed.
In 2016, as council president of the Lake Stevens City Council, I voted in favor of the annexation plan as referenced tonight in ordinance 2016-021. In addition, in previous county votes, I've consistently abstained in issues concerning the Lake Stevens Sewer District, where my wife is the general manager. In appearance of fairness to my constituents and potential conflicts of interest, I will be abstaining from the vote tonight and any deliberations on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lowe. Any other deliberation on this tonight?
I'll weigh in. I just would prefer to use a method that did do an advisory vote. So that's just my personal preference. I defer. We have 3 bodies here tonight, but that would be my personal preference under normal circumstances, but definitely during this pandemic, just to make sure that we have a good handle on the opinion of the area being annexed.
Council President or President Lawrence.
You can just call me Dan, that works. I would also be in favor. I think that the city, if it wants to meet, you know, and be transparent with the citizens, would call for a advisory vote. I think that that is something that, you know, the citizens would appreciate. We've heard a lot. I think all of us, we've heard for, but mainly against this annexation. We've all received some emails in regards to it, or quite a bit of emails in regards to the stance that they're at. You know, I know that I've been personally contacted by some of the folks that live in the area asking about what the district's position is. And while I've explained our position, I think I will be speaking with the rest of the board during our time and having some conversation. I will tell you just in regards to whether we're going to finalize the resolution that we have on the table tonight for the Board of Commissioners for Lake Stevens and have some more debate on it, because I think there's still a lot of questions that we have from citizens, and they seem to be coming out of the entire area, and they haven't been as representative as I feel personally, just because of Zoom. It's tough, and so that's where I'm kind of standing at. But obviously, when the Board of Commissioners will talk about this shortly, we'll be able to decide if we're going to hold on our resolution number 996 this evening and carry it over after we get some more input from some of the citizens in the area before we make a final vote on that. So I just wanted to let you know that that's my feelings on it. And I would really like to see an advisory vote of the people.
Okay. Any other deliberation? Not seeing anybody raise a hand.
Mary has her hand up.
Councilmember Dickinson.
So how does this process work at this point? Do we say now what we are thinking, or do we have a stand-up vote? How does this work now? I'm not sure, because I have things to say always, but I'm going to do it right. So I'm just listening.
So we're in deliberation at this point. After deliberation, I would close the public hearing, and then we would move into the action phase. And at that point, each of the city council, the county council, and the sewer commission has the ability at that point to take action on this either tonight, or they could go into further deliberations within their own quorums at a later date. Is that correct? Did I say that correctly? Okay, I got a head nod north and south and a yes mouth. So I'll take it. Does that answer your question, Mary?
Well, so I did want to say about transparency. I'm concerned about the transparency here and how this is being put forth, even though I know our staff has worked really hard, and we actually sent them down this rabbit hole because we said we wanted them to do this. So to turn around now and say, I'm not so sure. I just want you to know I'm having really strong second thoughts on this and in support of an advisory vote. Whenever that gets said, that's how I feel.
Okay, Councilmember Dunn.
So I just want to clarify that I think an advisory vote, if it moves forward, should include all of the residents of the city of Lake Stevens and the proposed annexation areas. And I mean, you could receive the information back from the auditor that shows everything outlined by precinct, but who would get that question on their ballot should include all of the people that are in Lake Stevens, just for the simple fact that there's been multiple annexations and that this one includes the lake. And so there's thousands of properties around the lake that would be directly impacted. And the new rule allows for an ILA, but it's not clear why that form was chosen aside from efficiency. But what is clear is that an ILA form does not allow for direct community input in the form of a vote or a petition. So I think an advisory vote or moving to a different form with the petition or the vote is important to consider at this time. We are in the middle of a pandemic, relying on remote testimony, relying on remote meetings and information exchange. So I think I like how the discussion is ending up.
Council Member Peterson.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Lawrenson, could you clarify? I was not quite sure what you were saying, in the sense that it was my understanding that the sewer district asked to be part of this annexation process. And now I'm sensing from your comments that the commission may be not so eager to be part of this annexation process, or by revisiting your resolution. Is that what I heard, or did I not hear you correctly?
I'm sorry. So no, I mean, I can't speak for the other board members. I mean, it'll come up there. We have a resolution in front of us that follows as you know, we have a unification agreement with the city of Lake Stevens that predates a lot of us in this meeting this evening. Goes back to 2005, saying that the Board of Commissioners would not oppose any annexations that come before them as part of the trade-off when we worked with the city to draft it back in the day so they could annex, and the sewer district had at that time taken on the sewer services that were part of downtown Lake Stevens.
Yeah, I understand all that.
Yeah, I think part of it is I just want to have some more, we follow, but we're hearing a lot about, opposition from folks that are sending emails that are kind of opposed to it. And I know I attended 2 of those Zoom meetings where the city put out with the staff, kind of giving an outline explanation on it. Very appreciative of that, but I don't think it reaches people sometimes where they get to see you face to face. I mean, I've taken a lot of phone calls and some text messaging here and there, just asking about it and inquiring. But I think a lot of times, as you know, if you've lived in the area a long time, annexation has always been a hot button issue there. It has been since the early 90s when I was with the city. I'm just saying, for the Board of Commissioners, when we do bring it up there, do we want to have some more discussion on it before we make the final resolution and pass it? That is completely up to the other members. It takes a majority. So I have not had that opportunity. As a Board of Commission, we're only 3, so we can't speak until we get into an open meeting. Otherwise, it's a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. And so my 2...
I apologize, but I understand all that. But I guess what I'm asking is, according to the ILA, your annexation of these areas that are not within your sewer district would take place at a later date.
You bet, but we do have a resolution that is part of tonight's meeting that's been asked to support this. And right now, I'd like to have, when we do have some more discussion with the other board members, if they want to proceed and the majority decides that we're going to pass resolution number 996, which supports it, then we move forward. But if they want to have some more discussion, we'll just have it at another one of our board meetings. If it is approved, then obviously we would notify the city and Snohomish County at that time. But I'm speaking as the single commissioner. I can't make a wide decision based on, I have 2 other board members that carry the same weight. So I was just speaking on my behalf, seeing some of the stuff that's going on. I'm not opposed to things, but I think that at times we have to have more information, transparency from, like I said, some of the people. And I'm not sure what the rush is, to tell you the truth, if you want it there. I'm not sure why we're trying to get it done by May versus if we took an advisory vote and went to August. You know, it's still in 2021. I'm not sure of any of the big push for that. So that's where I'm just at. That's me. When we get to the point, my fellow commissioners may want to speak on something else. They may just override what I have to say and vote to approve right there and then resolution number 996 and end the debate.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Stevenson, your hand is up.
Yeah, Commissioner Stevenson.
I just wanted to know if I can ask that we delay our vote and have a little bit more time to deliberate and consider everything, you know, maybe at another board meeting. That's just my stance.
I have a question. This is Councilmember Tagent. When everyone keeps using the word transparency, I'm trying to figure out, in sewer member Dan Lorenzen said that people need to be more transparent. Who needs to be more transparent? I'm trying to figure out where in this process we haven't been transparent and what part of this process that we followed it. We actually even sent a postcard out, which is something we didn't have to do. So I'm just trying to figure out the transparency portion of it. For clarification, I think we've hit all the marks that were set out by the legislature.
So I can answer transparency in my position as a board member, being a former city employee and being a part of a lot of the council meetings when I was part of the city, as far as either a staff member and employee or sitting in the audience. There are a lot of times when there are certain things that come before the elected officials that the citizens would like to come in and speak one-on-one. I think that has been the biggest thing. I think a lot of the times, some of the things that I've heard from some of the constituents that live in the area is when they did listen to the 2 meetings that were held by the city, it was great to listen, but they felt that it was controlled to the point they could not speak without being they felt kind of censored, that it was set up in a way that they were allowed to come in, they were allowed to speak, and then they were allowed to be locked out. And so I think at times when I speak of transparency, it's one-on-one, whether I like somebody's opinion or not, but I'm an elected official and I'm in the same room with them, they still get to voice their opinion, whether I appreciate it or not, and I can take that under advisement. I know during the outreach, there were some council members there. I can't say if it was a majority because I didn't see all of them. Some people were on the phone, you know, and we're doing it by Zoom. I know the elected officials from the sewer side were mostly there. So we listened to a lot of that stuff. So I think that's when I'm speaking transparency. I'm not saying that you guys have done anything wrong, that you're being secretive, but I think at times the biggest thing that I have heard from the constituents in the area, which I'm not an elected for the city council, I don't make land use issue decisions. They just felt that they didn't get to reach anybody. And that's, I can only speak for what they have come to me. And as you guys have seen and received, there are a lot of emails to that. So I think that's where, if we're going to say transparency, they're not feeling they're able to reach their elected official.
Commissioner Koshy.
So this one's pretty simple for me. From a personal standpoint, I think the advisory vote would be a wise thing to do to get that feedback from all the folks involved. From a commissioner of the sewer district, we have a contractual obligation in our unification agreement to support the annexation. And I think we should, and I think we will. So I think the advisory vote would be a good idea. We follow our contractual commitments. That contract has caused all sorts of opportunities for conversations over the years and will continue to cause some conversations. But I probably can, I think I'm safe to say that the portion of the district supporting annexations is a portion of the agreement the city is firmly in agreement with. And I think we need to fulfill that obligation. So whether we vote tonight or whether we want to deliberate, I think the end of the story is the district's going to support the annexation, whether the advisory vote happens or not.
Thank you. Councilmember Jorstad.
Thank you, Mayor Gailey. I've really appreciated being able to sort of digest all of the comments tonight. I want to echo something that Mary said. You know, this is happening because we discussed this at retreat, at council meetings. We deliberated around the best ways to proceed. And, you know, in those conversations with city staff and city council, this path made the most sense. And we're in a position now where, you know, I think we're elected officials, elected to make some decisions for the constituents that we represent. But these are not constituents in this area, in this annexation area, that voted for us as the city council. I'm disheartened by the number of people who didn't participate in the public meeting, who didn't speak up in this opportunity. I think that if there are 3,000 individuals, you know, if we had a sense at this point that the vast majority were supporting, the vast majority even, you know, kind of registered what was happening, I think I'd feel pretty comfortable moving forward. But I feel nervous about how little we've heard from the folks that live in that area. And I think that you can make a decision in a room with city staff and elected officials that makes really good sense, and then revisit that decision when you see a bigger picture and when you hear the voices of the people that you represent. And so I just want to sort of share my kind of where I sit right now. I also really appreciate the voices and hearing from where people are at. And I think that if that's an option that we have, I'm in favor of the advisory vote option, and want to thank city staff for all of the work and effort they've put into this, and know that please know that it's not in vain. Thank you.
Great. Do we have any other deliberation comments? Council President Wright.
Thank you. I just wanted to piggyback again on Angie's comments or Councilmember Jorstad's comments. Yeah, if there's an advisory vote, it doesn't mean that the staff's hard work gets thrown out. Actually, if we took an advisory vote and came back to it, all that hard work would be used. So I do understand when you ask staff to do a lot of things and invest time, you have to look at that resource. And I do want staff to recognize that we are using all of the information you've put together, and it would help inform that advisory vote, and that it would be considered on the other side of the advisory vote. So don't feel like your work's been done in vain. It's actually been a very valuable resource. So thank you.
Any other comments? I'm not seeing a hand or a wave. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing portion.
I see
Sean
Frederick.
Sean, where are you at? I saw you, but I didn't see a wave.
Camouflage. So I have remained silent at this point, really just kind of taking in the balance of all the comments. And there's a huge part of me that I really feel like it is there is a value to a chosen path. We did send staff down this path. We could have sent them down a different path. At one point, we did talk about the different options and the costs of going through the elections. And my internet is unstable. Hearing all the comments, I think that there's also a challenge here in simply moving forward. And I think for most of the people that know me, my general response would be to move forward, often to my own detriment. I think there's value in probably having the opportunity to continue this conversation. I'm not all the way at a advisory vote, but I think we certainly, if there's an opportunity to continue this conversation, I think we should. I do think there'd be value there. So I just want to add that comment before we even move forward with any action items or not. I think there's probably value in continuing the conversation. There's obviously been, there's obviously an opportunity that's presented itself for further deliberation. And I would certainly be open to investing that time and honoring the work that staff has put in.
All right, great. Thanks, John. Any other comments? Not seeing any other comments. Is anybody else seeing any other comments? All right, perfect. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. So what we'll do now is we'll go into the action phase. And what I'm going to do is I will first, we'll address the city council first and see what their desires are and where they would like to go at this point. Do I have a course of action from the city council?
I'll jump in, Mr. Mayor. I think it's apparent that we probably need to move forth with an advisory vote. I think most people would be comfortable with that. I do think that we need to continue the dialogue with the public. And certainly if any other questions arise, answer and address those questions. But I think it's apparent that we should move forward with an advisory vote and, let's see what the sentiment is out there. And my general feeling is part of the reason why, and I think it's typical of a lot of situations that we deal with, for the most part, I don't think the population out there is concerned as to why we're only hearing kind of a group of maybe 25 or 30, maybe 35 folks that are objected to this. We've also gotten emails, or not emails, but there's also letters in the record of folks supporting the annexation. So we had one person tonight that voiced their support of that. There are more in the record that show support for that than one person. So again, I think it's good for us to listen to the public, go down that road of the advisory vote and revisit this.
Councilmember Peter Sagan, are you making a motion?
That could be a motion, sure.
All right, I'll second that motion.
The only thing I would amend is that it would be on the primary calendar date of elections in August.
Can I make a?
I would ask for an actual worded motion.
I think Greg wants to speak.
Yeah, I have a comment. Is this area is outside the city, right? It's in the county. And, within other methods of annexation, there's authority for the city to, to have this call for this election. I will have to check to verify that, we've got authority to call for an advisory vote in an area that is outside the city, not part of a process. Probably certainly the county could call for the advisory vote if it wanted to. But I'll have to, I just want to let you know that that is a question that's in my mind, and I'll have to look at that to be able to give you clear advice as to whether or not we as a city can initiate that advisory vote for this area outside the city.
So let me call for a point of order here. Mr. Peter Sagan, could you please either withdraw your motion and go to a motion to delay our vote here for more deliberation? Or do you want to continue on with your motion?
Council President Daughtry, I don't think we have a motion. There wasn't, and there was good discussion led by Council Member Peter Sagan, but I don't think we have an actual motion. My suggestion at this point would be to stay the action of the city council. Let's listen to the action of the county council, and then maybe we can figure out something in between. Council President Wright, your floor.
Thank you. And actually, I was going to follow the city's lead in deference to you leading this if you were going to ask for the advisory vote. And for me, if the attorney says that the county would be the lead on that, I would be more than comfortable. But I, like the previous sewer district commissioner mentioned, I am just one. So I will defer to my council if they would like to give input on how we'd like to proceed and what their thoughts are. Don't all speak at once.
Councilmember Mead, it seems like the conversation has gone pretty clearly in the advisory vote direction, and I'm there with you, Chair Wright.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilmember Mead.
This is
Sorry
Nate.
to
I agree with that.
Sorry to interrupt. Kelly, can you let Councilmember Frederick in?
Oh, absolutely.
I moved him over.
Oh, you moved him over?
I did.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. That unstable internet. And for the record, I think he's on county internet, so it's us.
I think Councilmember Naring had comments.
Yes. Nate, did you want to continue? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying I agreed with Councilmember Mead's comments. It sounds like that's the direction this is going in, so support that.
Thank you. Councilmember Dunn?
Yeah, I would just ask the clerk if it would be appropriate to put this on a committee of the whole to schedule a future hearing date, and if that would be our meeting tomorrow or Monday.
Well, I was thinking, since we don't have a time certain for a hearing date, we could just make a motion to put this back into committee of the whole for now, and then we can bring it back later when you do have a hearing date, and then we can schedule at a later time, if that's what you want.
Excellent.
In the meantime, though, just for process, before you make that motion, would you allow me to read this ordinance into the record?
Absolutely. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. Snohomish County Council considers ordinance 21-005, approving and authorizing the county executive to sign an interlocal agreement between Snohomish County and the city of Lake Stevens and the Lake Stevens Sewer District for the Southeast Interlocal Annexation. Thank you.
And just for the record, if we move to leave it in committee of the whole, it would essentially be on the table. We could take this back up after the city of Lake Stevens decides its future actions, if you're going to go for an advisory vote or ask for one, or how you're going to proceed. Because I feel like we should be only taking action after the city has taken action.
Okay, so I will bring it back to the city council deliberation on what we would like to do.
I move that we ask the county council to put forth an advisory vote regarding this ILA agreement. Is that okay?
Did we want the attorney to weigh in on who would be the primary jurisdiction?
So, and I think another part of that question is one of the issues that brought up was, is this a vote just within the annex area, or is it a citywide vote? So then it would need to be a joint city county advisory vote. Did we lose?
I might
Perhaps
add,
we-
sounds like it's not a vote on the ILA, it's a vote on the annexation.
Yeah, correct, the annexation. Yeah. And I think we lost Greg to another meeting. I know he had another one. So we're gonna have to wing this without a lawyer. Are we okay with that?
Can I offer a friendly amendment to the motion that I would like to move that we continue to work with Snohomish County Council to pursue an advisory vote, and we get legal counsel about how best to proceed in that direction.
Okay, so I have an amendment to the original. Well, actually, the first. I'm not sure the first motion was seconded.
It was not. It was not. So if
seconded.
So So Mary, for simplicity's sake, would you mind withdrawing your motion?
Consider withdrawn. It's
Okay, we have
withdrawn.
a withdrawn motion, and Councilmember Jorstad.
Angie's fine.
Councilmember Jorstad, would you provide us a motion with your thoughts?
Yes, I would like to move that we, as the Lake Stevens City Council, work alongside Snohomish County County Council to pursue an advisory vote on the proposed annexation and receive legal counsel on how best to proceed.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. Do we have any discussion on the motion?
If Councilmember Jorstad would entertain a friendly amendment that we put that note so it is available for the August primary election.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can I get a second on the amendment?
They say August of 2021.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, so I have a second on the amendment. Do we have any further discussion on the amendment?
If we can make it sure that it's 2021, and then we're putting it off until a future date. So if we can have the year specific, that would be appreciated.
Roger, I think we got that. Okay, any discussion on the amendment? Hearing no discussion. What was that? Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, hearing no discussion, I'll go for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed to the amendment? Hearing amendment passes. So we'll go back to the first original amendment. Is there any further discussion on that amendment?
And the motion?
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
The
the
motion.
motion.
The
Yes,
motion as amended.
correct. It's getting to be a long night. Okay, so hearing no discussion on the motion with the amendment, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, so that is the action of the Lake Stevens City Council on this at this point. I will hand the floor over to you, Council President Wright.
Thank you very much. Debbie, if we could go back to the motion that you proposed to move this to committee of the whole so we can leave this live and continue our discussions with the city.
Okay, I was just writing that out, so let me think now. You got me on the spot.
Sorry.
I think that a motion to move ordinance 21005 to council committee of the whole to consider a future hearing date would be good enough. Because like you said, that will leave us set to table it, kind of.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
I move ordinance 21-005 to a council committee of the whole to schedule a future hearing date.
Perfect.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, chair
Abstain.
votes aye. Passes 4-0. Okay, thank you very
4-0.
much. And back to you, Mayor.
401.
Oh, yes, 401. Sorry. The voice from recused. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So we will move to Commission President Lawrenson, Sewer District.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I'm not sure if our general manager is on this evening. If she did make it to the end, she was going to read resolution number 996 that we do have. I will turn that over to her. I think you're muted. I think we may be having some internet connectivities, and I know that her and I have been speaking, and so I'll go ahead and read into the resolution into the minutes here. So resolution number 996 is a resolution by the Board of Commissioners for the Lake Stevens Sewer District in Snohomish County, Washington. It would be formalizing the support for the Southeast Interlocal Agreement pursuant to the revised Code of Washington 35A.14.296. It is before the board members. I have Commissioner Koshi and Commissioner Stevenson. At this time, I would just open it up to say that I would like to continue deliberation on this resolution, and then return at another time when our partners with Snohomish County and the city of Lake Stevens, when we know the direction after an advisory vote is taken, that we formalize that. So at that point, I would open it up to my two board members to please add your comments.
I'd agree.
I agree too. Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, I guess what we would do is just make a motion to continue the deliberation on ordinance resolution, I should say, number 996, just continuing at another date, and working from there as we work with our county and city partners on that. So
I'd make a motion that we continue in deliberations on resolution 996 to coincide with our city partners, both the city and council, as they continue their deliberations.
I second.
So it has been moved and seconded to continue deliberations before a final vote on resolution number 996 comes before the Board of Commissioners. Any further discussion on that before I call for the vote? Hearing none and seeing them indicate by waving their head side to side in a no fashion, I'll go ahead and call for a continuation of the resolution on, or continuation of deliberation on resolution number 996. All in favor of continuing the deliberation, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And it has carried. I will turn it back over to Mayor Gailey. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner President. All right, so with that, we are done with the public hearing. I want to thank everyone for their diligence in tonight's discussion and the well-rounded discussion as well, and thoughts that were put into this annexation process. I like the direction that we're going on this. And with that, we have nothing further for the great county council members, nor the great sewer district commissioners, and you are free to leave if you wish, unless you would love to stick around for a few items that we have as a city council to work with. Council President Wright.
I will be excusing myself, but I just wanted to say it was a pleasure to join you, and I think we all appreciated the discussion tonight. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. And just because we're going out to an advisory vote doesn't mean that this will not be successful. We just want a little bit more public input so we feel confident. So I just, again, want to reiterate my appreciation for everybody on the I was going to say call, but the Zoom tonight. So thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Great comments. Anybody else?
And I would just like to thank everybody for the hard work on this. I know that there was a lot of work put in it. I appreciate everybody listening to the different sides on this. I think as the council member had stated, the president of the council, that it will be successful. It'll just get some input and take a little longer, but I think we're on the right path. So thank you very much, and I appreciate the time.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right, great. If city council would stay on board, we have a couple of items left, and we'll move on for those. So with that, let's move into the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda, please?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second. Did you get
I
that?
go Councilmember Daughtry, second Councilmember Ewing is what I heard.
Okay. And we still have 7708 in the room. Are we able to?
You know, I'm not exactly sure. There must be some kind of a glitch, because unfortunately I can't, if I remove that person, I'll remove them completely from the meeting entirely.
So 7708, we're going to go ahead and remove you. Please call back in and we'll put you back in the attendees. So go ahead and do that for me, Kelly.
Yeah, unfortunately, oh, they just dropped off. Unfortunately, if I did that, that person would not be able to get back in at all.
Oh.
But they did just drop off, so I think we're good.
Excellent. So with that, I have a motion and a second on the floor to pass the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that, we're going to move into an executive session. This is the last item on our agenda, and that's a property acquisition per RCW 42.30.110, and as well as collective bargaining. And there may be action to follow following the executive session. So with that, are we moving to Teams, Kelly?
Yes, you should all have a Teams link. You're going to do the property acquisition first.
Okay.
And so Jean or Mayor, let me know when the second topic is up.
And we need probably 20 minutes. Call it 20 minutes for now.
Okay.
Probably less.
Okay.
Do you want to say 15?
Let's say 15.
Okay. I'll be hanging out here.
Kelly, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Do you have the Zoom link?
I do, but do I leave this? Do I leave here? Do I leave?
Don't leave, just mute yourself and turn your video off and go to the Teams link.
Okay.
Or you can, if it's easier for you to leave and come back in, you can do that too.
Okay.
Loretta, I see your hand is up. Do you have a question? Loretta, I noticed your hand was up. Do you have a question? Loretta, can you hear me?
Looks like you have Angie's hand up too.
Okay. Loretta, can you hear me? Thank you for your patience. The council's requested an additional 5 minutes.
We're back.
Anya, can you hear me? Kelly, excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
We can all hear you, Marcus.
All right, just waiting for a couple more. I think some people log all the way out. So let me pull everybody in again. There's Mary and Jean. Marcus, this is a late meeting.
It is a late evening. Boy, we've just gone through a lot tonight.
I know.
Marcus, it's not my fault.
I don't blame anyone. Just a good meeting, a lot of good conversation, a lot of good dialogue. This is what we came for.
Okay, we got all the council members. I think we're
Chief and Anya. Is Russ coming back?
Russ isn't coming back, I don't think.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I don't think we need Russ.
All right. Okay.
So we're coming back from the executive session, and with that, I'll hand over. Do we have a motion?
You have a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the 2021 to 2023 collective bargaining agreement between the city of Lake Stevens and the Lake Stevens Police Guild.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed?
And I
Excellent.
move to adjourn.
Thank you, Council.
Second.
Can we have a move to adjourn and a second? All those against such things, just stay on and we'll let you stay here.
Aye.
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 Thanks for everyone's work. Good stuff tonight. And just help your neighbor out. I'm going to bed.
Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Cover your mouth.
Bye-bye.
Don't touch your face.
Good night, guys.
Good night.